This week we're exploring the town of Amherst. Located at the center of Hampshire County, it is the largest city in the county with a population of 39,263 people. How did Amherst become such a large college town? Was this always the case or just serendipity? I'm Gus, and let's see what's along the way. The area we call Amherst today was first settled around the 1730s as part of the town of Hadley, which itself was settled in 1659. A dispute concerning membership and baptism requirements in Hartford led to settlers to leave and find a new place with fertile land. They settled in an area called Nonotuck, which was initially occupied by Pocumtuck members. After being surveyed, the land was purchased, and as seen in other transactions, the Pocumtuck thought they were sharing the land rather than a full-out sale. And on May 22nd of 1661, Hadley was incorporated into the Massachusetts Bay Colony and was added to the newly formed Hampshire County a year later. Hadley grew as an agrarian town while also needing to maintain defenses as tensions grew between the settlers and nearby tribes. During King Philip's War, Hadley, like other towns, enacted restrictions to native residents, further increasing tensions. These tensions led to raids upon Hadley, whose residents were involved in the Bloody Brook Massacre on September 28, 1675. As this cycle continued, residents of Hadley continued to slowly expand. New settlements started to form within Hadley's growing boundaries. The first of these began in the south, around 1721. Later, around the 1730s, another settlement formed on the east under the name Precinct No. 3. Like Hadley proper, the precinct settlers also focused on agriculture, and as the precinct grew, so did its needs, including a new meeting house to serve its population. Discussions about a new meeting house rose the issue of church taxes, because the residents of the precinct did not want to pay the taxes for both their own meeting house and the one on Hadley proper. And so, after multiple requests, the area was surveyed, and on February 13th of 1759, it separated from Hadley and was given the name of Amherst and incorporated into Massachusetts, Hampshire County. Amherst contains two prominent rivers, the Mill River in the north and the Fort River in the south, which both drain westwardly into the Connecticut River. These rivers provide the resources needed for Amherst's early development. The first mills were erected around the Mill River as early as the 1730s, processing locally grown products and timber. Amherst is crossed by three major routes: Massachusetts Route 9, 63, and 116. A portion of Amherst roads are based on old trade routes, as it is the case with Bay Road. These roads are wide and prepared for the seasonal increase of traffic in the area. Amherst receives freight rail traffic from the former Central Vermont Railway from north to south, and is currently being served by the New England Central Railroad. Amherst formerly had a second line from the Central Massachusetts Railroad, later called Boston and Maine. This line was transformed not long after its abandonment into a rail trail. There is no passenger rail traffic since 2014. The post-revolution economic period was hard for Amherst and its neighbors. Regardless, Amherst's location and mixed economy of agriculture and manufacture was attractive for business. By the turn of the century, Amherst had a population of 1,258 people. Though small, Amherst quickly developed three main distinct cores: North Amherst, Amherst Center, and South Amherst. Each of these population centers had its own economic focus, centered on either agriculture, manufacture, or trade. This influenced the needs of the area's citizens, which were sometimes in opposition to the needs of citizens in other regions, or the town as a whole. This dynamic influenced Amherst's early development, and some of these tensions continue to pop out to this day. Amherst's early residents argue over the placement of both meeting houses and schoolhouses, many of which were built only to then be moved soon after, as the population grew and shifted. One of these schools was Amherst Academy, first built on Amity Street around 1816. The academy would later transform into Amherst College in 1825, after a failed, half-hearted attempt to move Williams College to Amherst, which left the door open for a new college in the area. Though Amherst College state charter prohibited from requiring religious exams, it took some years before it became a welcoming place for all male pupils. As Amherst's economy and population increased, so did its neighbor from across the river, Northampton. In the early 1840s, the construction of the Northampton and Springfield Railroad and subsequent merger with the Greenfield and Northampton Railroad created a sort of train fever that permeated the region. An increasingly interested population saw construction of a line west of the river. Commissions created to seek a solution stalled, but their efforts were not in vain, as by the 1850s, the Amherst and Belchertown Railroad formed. The railroad quickly grew, expanding towards Palmer, and then merging with the New London Northern Railroad, receiving its first train from New London to Amherst on May 16th of 1853. The Civil War created an economic boom for Amherst industries, exporting multiple products such as straw hats, planes, bricks, guns, and more. Even with a population of under 5,000, Amherst was able to support many industries in part thanks to its rail network. But if you look around Amherst today, you see little to no evidence of industries. That's because its expansion also came with a cost: lack of readily available water to fight fires. Like in many other towns during this period, building fires were a relatively common occurrence. In Amherst, fires proved devastating to the town's industries. The majority of Amherst's industrial infrastructure was contained in two areas: Factory Hollow in North Amherst and in downtown Amherst next to the train tracks. Factory Hollow, located far from downtown, was also far away from most town services, including firefighting. After the Merchant Row Fire of 1879, with the cooperation from the town of Pelham, Amherst was able to secure reservoirs and other water sources for its residents and fire department. By the end of the 19th century, Amherst was developing into a prominent town. Though smaller than the county seat of Northampton, Amherst residents began receiving modern amenities such as gas, electric lighting, paved sidewalks, and a telephone exchange. With these improvements and major projects like the opening of the Northampton and Amherst Railroad, the Amherst and Sunderland Street Railway, and the construction of Amherst's first permanent town hall, Amherst was ready to welcome the 20th century. The early 1900s marked the end of Amherst's economic growth from the previous century. The first war effort was beneficial for Amherst industries, but after the war, production diminished, taking a big hit during the Great Depression. But unlike other towns we've seen, Amherst's population kept increasing during the Great Depression, reaching a population of 6,410 people in the 1940 census. As industries left, two players in Amherst suddenly became the new economy that will bring Amherst to the 21st century. In 1863, the Massachusetts Agricultural College, or Mass Aggie, was formed through the Morrow Land Grant Act, initially tasked to offer an agricultural, mechanical, and military arts education, and it did so accordingly, expanding agricultural research while providing arms training. As the 20th century began, Mass Aggie was slowly expanding, erecting new departments and buildings, including the first women's dormitory, Draper Hall, in 1903. In 1931, Mass Aggie changed its name to Massachusetts State College, and despite an increasingly dwindling enrollment due to the wartime draft, MSC started to offer classes in engineering and economics. The end of the Second World War and the GI Bill created the ideal conditions for the MSC campus to expand. constructing multiple dormitories for the returning veterans and new faculty buildings. These expansions continued throughout the mid-20th century, most notably during the 1960s to accommodate the upcoming baby boomer class. MSC, now called University of Massachusetts Amherst, made its biggest expansion yet, increasing its research capacity in areas such as polymers, computer science, and more. At this time, MSC also created new residential areas such as Southwest, containing 5 striking 22-story towers, bearing a modernist brutalist style, employing the usage of brick and concrete. They can host upwards to 5,500 students, almost half of the undergraduate student population at the time. The campus itself hosts many diverse buildings, made during different periods of the campus growth, fashioned in many styles including Georgian colonial architecture, brutalist, federal, and more. By the 1970s, Umass student population was surpassing 20,000. This came with more expansions like the construction of the W.E.B. Du Bois Library Tower and changes to how Umass presented itself. By this period, both the public and the student body were starting to question the university's mascot and associated traditions, which was the red man. It was chosen during the 1940s after the school changed its name. The portrayal is said to be of Chief Metawampi, who sold the land where the campus now lays, but this story is tenuous at best, and its portrayal, which is not unlike what we see in other places, culminated with the change of the mascot to the Minuteman. Chosen during the Vietnam War period, the Minuteman was picked without a student vote, as it was done previously, and the new mascot has also caused controversy right to this day. The 1970s also brought change for the rest of Amherst, with Amherst College opening enrollment to women and the opening of a new college in South Amherst. Hampshire College, first formed in 1965 by the presidents of Amherst, Smith, and Mount Holyoke colleges, together with Umass Amherst, as a new kind of school that emphasized student curiosity rather than institutional learning. Though much smaller than the other institutions in Amherst, has provided a different way to enrich its students' educational careers. These expansions benefited the town of Amherst, providing consistent employment and educational opportunities for its residents. By the 1980 census, Amherst had a population of 33,229 people, surpassing the county seat of Northampton. This pattern of growth continued throughout the rest of the 20th century. But by the year 2000, Amherst's population was 34,874, a decrease of 354 people from the previous decade. Under Massachusetts definitions, Amherst is a city, but in practice it looks and acts like a small town. Multiple factors, including Amherst's seasonal student population, can create gaps where the town shrinks to its living population, with the services and amenities of a larger settlement. With multiple parks, museums, libraries, and community events, the seasonality of students has a big effect on Amherst's economy, with a big test being if a business can last through the summer. Amherst, for a time, used to receive passenger train traffic through the Amtrak Vermonter line from 1989 until 2014, after the Connecticut River line was rebuilt and the station was replaced with the one in Northampton. The seemingly symbiotic relationship between Amherst and its institutions can also be contentious at times. The institution's needs for public services can strain the town's emergency services, as Amherst consists of around 15% of college or university land. Most recently, Amherst College went through something similar to what Umass did during the 1970s. Amherst College mascot, the Lord Jeffs, was a portrayal of Lord Jeffrey Amherst, whom the town of Amherst is named after. Lord Jeffrey Amherst's legacy came to the forefront as his actions during the colonial period led to the sickness and death of many Native Americans via the distribution of disease-infected blankets. His actions were known in his own time, and were even considered somewhat controversial not long after Amherst's founding. For Amherst College, action had to be taken, changing their mascot to the Mammoths in 2017. In 2020, Amherst's population reached a new height, with 39,263 people, with the majority employed in one of the town's higher ed schools. The pandemic was difficult for Amherst's seasonal economy, which heavily relies on the presence of students in town. This period caused many businesses, including some historic ones, to close their doors. Today, Amherst, despite its name, has become a welcoming place for all, offering multiple backdrops, from the quaint town feeling of downtown, the metropolis of Umass Amherst, or the rural living of South Amherst. Though the cost of living for both students and residents can be quite high, the experience of living in Amherst can be more than worth it for some. With its location at the crossroads of education, modernity, and agriculture, it has become a common path for many who have not only influenced Amherst, but the world to this day. So what do you guys think? Do you live in Amherst or have ever visited? Amherst has been an influence for many, to not only its pupils or residents, but for those who live to create good. That's all I got for you today. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time.